Hello and welcome to Women in Retail Talks. In this episode, you'll hear a short clip from a Q&A session with Katie Finnegan, founder of Walmart's store number 8, from the 2019 Women in Retail Leadership Circle On the Road Los Angeles event. Whirl C co-founder Melissa Campanelli speaks with Katie on how she brought an entrepreneurial mindset to a Fortune 1 company, where she sees retail technology taking the industry in the next 5 to 10 years, the biggest challenge she's faced in her career, and her tips for networking. And now, on to the show.
It's amazing to me that you were able to create like an entrepreneurial company in such a large organization. I mean, you know, I think it's a testament to Walmart that they allowed you guys to do that. You know, you were basically like testing stuff and spending money doing it. But
yeah, I mean, it's a testament to Doug. I mean, Doug, the CEO of Walmart, is a huge, and he sits on the board of store number 8. And so there's a board that oversees sort of the investment thesis. But you need to do something like this. You need to have buy-in across all levels of the organization. And so that's first. And then secondly, you need to create a structure that allows people to actually do what you want them to do. And I'm a huge fan of the Netflix culture deck, if anyone's read that. I was just reading it again yesterday. It's a 125-page deck, but there's like a few key themes. And it's really about like, how do you create a structure that empowers the doers to do? And so let's all align on the North Star. Let's all agree, and that's usually the hardest part, right? But then allow people to figure out the tactics to get there on their own. You don't need 78 checkpoints of approvals and reapprovals of things that, back to my $1 million, in the scheme of Walmart, $1 million is a little bit of money. I understand it's a lot of money, but you don't need checkpoints for things that in the context of the broader company would not be something that you can't come back from. And so that's a really interesting lens, because as companies start to grow and scale, the very natural choice is, okay, we've got to create more process because process keeps people in line. Well, process also stifles creativity, stifles innovation, and pushes out really the change makers. They don't want to work in a process oriented because that's not how their brain works.
Right.
And so then you say, okay, if we don't create rules, it's going to be mass chaos. Well, I think if you create principles, and that's really what we did with the store number 8 CEOs. We're like, here's your North Star. Listen, we're not going to be checking, there's no expense reports with store number 8 companies. We're not going to be checking your expense reports, but don't do anything stupid. You know, and by the way, if you do something stupid, we're going to take action for that. But like, we inherently trust you, and we're hiring the caliber of person we think we need to. But we're also, in the scheme of, again, the context of Walmart, the most they could steal is $1 million.
Right.
Like, that's the most they could steal, right? It's not going to make or break our company. It'd be a horrible article, but it wouldn't actually make or break the bottom line of the company.
Yeah, I mean, I just think this is great. And what was it like working for Mark? Like, you know, he's in the news so much now. Like, how did you learn anything from him? I mean, you did talk about the conference call, but like, you know, what about like his management style, or what was it like?
Yeah, so for those 2 years at Jet, we were attached at the hip.
Yeah.
So I ran fundraising, M&A, and strategy. So we just traveled together, did everything together. So I got to know him pretty well. And, you know, he has so our values at Jet, like, still really resonate with me. They're trust, transparency, and fairness. And he really takes those to heart, and that really is like at the core of who he is. And so from a trust perspective, I think probably a lot of my point of view is fueled by that, where it's like, let people make those decisions and also let them fail. And so there'd be times, because I'd usually sort of know his inner dialogue of what we wanted to do, we'd be in a leadership meeting with the rest of the Jet leadership team. And the conversation is going this way, where I know we've already decided we want to go here. And I'm like looking at him like, are you going to interject? Like, come on, like, this isn't what we wanted. And he would let it go sideways. And then either one of two things would happen. They would try it well, actually 3 things. They would try it. They were right. We were wrong. Cool. We got to a better place. 2, they would try it. They would realize it didn't work, and we would then reevaluate and get there, and maybe it just took longer. Or 3, honestly, in the context of the conversation and everyone else around the table, there would be things that got you back there, and you never actually, you know, sort of tried that thing. And to me, that was a really interesting learning, and I think overall he's taught me was, I'm very much about efficiency and like getting things done, and how do I sort of increase my throughput. And what he's really taught me is, you know, that's great, but even if you work 7x harder, or, you know, probably the most you can work is 3x harder than an average human. Like, you can't really go to like 7x, right? And then you work a little bit longer, so maybe you get to 4x. Like, that's where you're going to top out. And to be able to attract and retain the type of talent you want that can work with trust, right? So you can give them these principles and know they'll work off them. You have to then allow them to run with those things. And so, if you top out at 4X, you reach a certain capacity. But if you can create an environment where other people generally have the similar direction and vision of you, and maybe they don't do it the exact way, but ultimately it gets somewhere, you can exponentially grow your influence in your base. And I would say probably a big reason why at Jet we did everything we did within 2 years with a pretty small team. I would say at the end of right at the acquisition, we're maybe at 1,000 employees, but prior to that, for the majority of those 2 years, it was like 200 or 300 people. Mm-hmm. Like, it was not a large org for the amount of things we got done.
Right.
And I think that was a big part of his style.
Mm. Great. So let's switch gears a little bit. You're obviously an expert in the retail space. You've seen a lot of stuff. You've worked at a lot of different companies. What are some trends that you're watching right now in terms of retail? Like, what should we be thinking about?
So the last couple of years, I've been thinking like further out. So not really like 1 to 2 years, but 5 to 7 to 10 years. And I think one thing that is apparent to me is it's sort of two things, but together. I think the org structure of retail needs to fundamentally change. And you see like pieces of that happening. You see all the Walmart announcements, you see pieces of that happening, but I don't know if it's totally there and or if it's transformational enough. And by that I mean, you still see orgs a lot of times where it's digital and physical. And it should just be customer experience, right? They expect one fluid experience. They're not thinking about org charts and who reports to whom. And I think the same thing happens in particular with mass retailers from a category perspective. And so you'll have like, okay, this will be, the consumables paper category, and then this and that. But people are cross-shopping, and they're more about need states than they are about like, actually, products. Was it paper or was it plastic? Like,
right.
Probably plastic is a bad thing, but bamboo or other things like that. And so as a result, where I see the customer journey going, and I think then the org structure is going to have to really transform to meet that, is there's going to be like a bifurcation of retail, and there's like three, and then I'm talking at mass, right, general sort of high level. There's three need states that I think are going to exist. There's going to be the like, I need it every day, can't live without it, that today is still actually pretty high on the customer's sort of thought list. And so you think about toilet paper or coffee or milk, and I would say actually the definition of I need it today, every day, is different for every person. Mm-hmm. So what I need every day is different for you. So again, not back to categories, but back to need state. For those things, you think the dash button or whatever is kind of the answer. And quite honestly, I think that's incremental. I think the leapfrog that we will see, and this is probably 7 years out, is there'll be real-time monitoring of consumption, whether it's through computer vision, so back to AI, in your fridge where it understands like they took the milk out. There'll also be predictability, but there's ebbs and flows in that. So you can't just use like, hey, you usually have 2 ounces of milk every day to predict it. You need to have some other real-time metric to understand consumption, so that there will be a concept of safety stock in your fridge or underneath your cabinet in your bathroom of your toilet paper, whatever those things are for you. And the retailer or brand of choice will have access to auto-fulfill those. And by that, I don't mean they'll just ship it to your house. You will just always have milk in your fridge. You won't even know how it got there. And I think the when, how, what, it's just not even going to be any mind share for you in the future. And I think the analogy I think is really interesting is if you think about how we used to meet up with people like at the mall, and you'd have to be like, I'm going to be in front of Tower Records at 12:15, and then traffic, they're there at 12:22, and you just stood there and waited. Now you don't even plan that. You're just like, hey, are you at the mall right now? And you text the person, or you drop a pin, or you do those things. And so if you think about the mind share that went into like coordinating and meeting up, it's just like a non-concept anymore. And I think the same thing will happen for that group of need states. And again, the products will be different for each person. And what that will do to supply chain will be really interesting, right? Because then you can become much more predictable in supply chain and probably a lot smarter in packaging and so many other things. The second is things that, you need and you generally understand, but maybe you don't need every day. And I think there'll be two distinct experiences that happen. One will be very similar to like the Jet Black experience, where it's sort of omnipresent voice-based. And so Jet Black is text, but over time, where everything in your life is gonna be a connected device. And so you'll have this relationship with your retailer or brand or brands of choice where in real time you can just, say a command, and not in the Alexa command structure where you're like, Alexa, I need this. You'll just say like, gift for Emma's friend. And they'll know Emma's, your 2-year-old, she's a girly girl, and you like to spend $25 on birthday gifts, right? So in that example, they might just say, hey, there's a cool new Barbie, we're gonna ship it to you, gift wrapped, blah, 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 and you'll get it, basically next day, same day. Or on the other, there's, hey, listen, we actually have fun in this experience, so we'll actually go to a physical store. But then the point of the physical store doesn't become about access to goods. It becomes about experience and education. So either you bring Emma with you and it's like this really fun fairy tale world and she picks the gift out for her friend or personalizes it for her friend. But all of a sudden the actual like physical structure of the store is very different, right? It's not just about stuff on shelves. It really has to serve a much different need. And not that this is exactly the business model, but you look at things like camp in New York City that are opening up and things like that. There's going to be pieces of that come in that are going to need to fill that need state, because all of a sudden access is easy. Access is voice and auto replenish. Like that's not what the store is doing for you. And then the third case will be like general merchandise that has, that mass does not traditionally do well, that has a high degree of education or emotion and a very considered purchase. And in that, it can happen in both physical and digital worlds, but I see that being a really immersive media experience with either AR, VR, some sort of wearable device where, like, let's talk about shopping for a tent. Right now, the digital experience of shopping for a tent is pretty horrible, right? Like, in a lot of places when you shop for diapers, online or in store, it's like, okay, you can take either. But if you look at shopping for a tent at REI or going on a website, like there's a huge difference in those experiences. And so I think immersive media will really transform that and then actually bring it up a notch, where not only can you see the tent, you can practice putting it together to understand, is it really easy enough for you to do it? Can you do it on your own? You can lay in it and they say it's 4 people and be like, there's no way this is 4, this is actually 2 for my family, I'll need the 6th person. And then you can actually simulate things that you couldn't even do in the real world. Like, so even if you got REI to open a tent for you, you could actually simulate rain and understand, okay, how good are these rain flaps? And will it do a monsoon or will it just do like light rain? And all of these things that are not possible in the physical world will just really enhance that sort of highly considered general merchandise experience. And to me, those are kind of all, again, this is sort of my like sample size of 1, ideas of how the world's going to come to be, and it's a combination of consumer need states and technology enabling it. But what I see often that I want to caveat with is a lot of times people start with the technology and they're like, cool, what can I do with this? And I think that's the wrong answer. I think you need to start with, okay, what does the customer need to get out of this experience? And then, by the way, how do we deliver it?
Right. Wow, that's so interesting. It's amazing how so many people companies don't think like that right now. So.
Well, so and if you believe that to be true, which again, sample size of 1, like it would fundamentally change how you're thinking about new store formats and things like that. Right.
Okay, so I want to make sure to have time for questions. I just want to get to some kind of juicy stuff. So what do you feel was your biggest challenge in your career, and how did you solve it? Or biggest problem or failure, whatever you want to say.
Yeah, I would say, honestly, and maybe just because it's top of mind, my biggest challenge was the transition from super small startup to Fortune 1. But there's so many things about that I'm so happy I had that experience. But learning about, and I had this in consulting a little bit, but it's different when you're in consulting because you're brought in and sort of the CEOs bring you in. I spent a lot of time socializing and sort of getting a lot of stakeholders on board. And it was definitely much more of a go slow to go fast mentality, whereas I was very used to just go fast to go fast mentality. And I would say like culturally that was very hard for me. And I was really lucky that I had some great mentors that were just, Mark being one, extremely honest with me as to where I need to pick my battles or not. I'm so fortunate that I had that experience because I think it's shaped who I am and it's allowed me to see things in a different point of view. But that was a really hard transition that first year.
What about, can we talk a little bit about, because a big part of Women in Retail is networking and having a network to help you to bounce ideas off of. How important is it to you, is your network, and how do you use it?
Yeah, so I've been told, I guess, I'm sort of a natural networker, I guess. I don't think of it as something I consciously do, but then I seem to know a lot of people, and so I guess it does come to me. I would say what I think is really important when people ask me about this is don't network for network's sake, I guess, and that it's so transactional. And so I'll have some people, and I'm happy, like, especially I went to Colgate undergrad, any Colgate person ever emails me, I'll meet with them, I'll do whatever. But don't just meet with me. Sometimes they'll meet with me to just say, like, very generic questions. It's like, if you want me to submit your application, for, just let me know. Like, I can submit that. Like, you don't have to have coffee with me to ask that question. And I think sometimes people are so shy that they have to dance around the subject about what the actual end goal is of the conversation.
Right.
But if you want to network because you actually have interesting point of views and you want to share them, then do that. But if you're reaching out to someone because there's an actual ask at the end of that, I would be more blunt and just give that ask. Because especially a lot of the people are so busy that it's like, to go to lunch, to meet you, it's like an hour and a half out of my day. I was like, oh, you just want me to send your resume to Jenny Fleiss? Like, okay. Like, you could have just asked that. And I know sometimes, you border on being too forward, but I think women tend to actually over-index on the other way. And it actually leaves a sour taste where it's like, you took an hour and a half of my day, but you didn't really ask me anything or need anything, and it was kind of just like filling time.
Right.
And so I think networking to just network is actually more harm than good.
Right. Okay, well, I think that's all we have time for. But thank you so much, Katie. It was great talking to you.
Thanks for listening. For more information on this podcast, please check out our podcast channel page at wirlc.com/podcasts for show notes. Women in Retail Talks is available on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, and Spotify. Make sure to subscribe on our podcast channel page as well. If you've enjoyed this episode, please take a few moments to rate and review this podcast. Thanks, and until next time, this has been Women in Retail Talks.